How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/US/leading edge.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Good afternoon. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the State Party, as well as the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and once again, Jesse and I are honored and privileged to have a very special guest with us, Ellis Hannigan, a great journalist, writer, award-winning journalist and writer. He's written 20-odd books. He's written for newspapers. He's been on radio. He's been on television, and he's a great voice and has a lot of wisdom and experience. So, Ellis, Jesse and I are delighted to have you back with us.
Boy, that's a high bar. I hope I can live up to some of that, Judge.
Well, we have a lot of questions here to go over, gentlemen. Jesse, we have to put Ellis to the proof.
The judge wants to make sure that you're check cleared. So
that's right. That's right. I think, I know the technique. They butter you up at the beginning, and then they come at you with knives. I know how that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking about buttering up and beginnings, let's talk about the first topic I want to talk about, which is the Hunter Biden investigation and prosecution in Delaware. Now, I submit to both of you, gentlemen, that this is a tainted, illegitimate investigation. Let me tell you why, and then I'll turn it over to each of you. The word has just gotten out that there's an appointment of a special counsel, Mr. Weiss. Now, Mr. Weiss had been the U.S. attorney in Delaware. He was supposed to be investigating the Hunter Biden influence peddling, failed to pay taxes, failed to register as a foreign agent, false filing with a gun permit, federal crime. And he let it sit for years. Then the statute of limitations, strangely enough, went away. It was now tainted because you could no longer prosecute. The statute of limitations had run, and the ability to prosecute had run away for some of the most serious crimes from 2014 through 2017, 2018. Then he had said all along that he was fully authorized to do investigation, but he never did anything with it. And yet at the same time, he was claiming in a private meeting with the staff that the U.S. attorneys in the District of Columbia and the U.S. attorneys in California weren't cooperating with him. And Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, said he had full power. So somebody is not telling the truth. Did he have power? Didn't he have power? Why didn't he do anything? Why did the statute of limitations run and the ability to prosecute serious crimes lapse? And the secret of that, of course, is the whistleblowers who testified before Congress. So he was forced to come up with some face-saving device. And that face-saving device was a sweetheart deal for 2 misdemeanors and a diversion program for the drugs. And the misdemeanors would have really no jail time. And tagged on to this deal, in part of the diversion agreement, was a full-blown, broad basis of immunity for all of the crimes that Hunter Biden had done. And the real story, of course, was Hunter Biden a conduit for the money moving back to all the members of the Biden family, including the vice president, now the president of the United States, Joe Biden. So he never should have been appointed because fundamentally he has to investigate himself and his own staff, including Lisa Wolf, who allegedly gave tip-offs to the defense counsel about what was going on, including when they wanted to interview Hunter and he strangely disappeared. So this is very serious stuff. And Garland is puffing his chest up and said, look at me, I have an independent special counsel now. Why did it take so long? And is the guy to do it Mr. Weiss? And the answer, of course, is no. So I humbly submit that this is a tainted, illegitimate investigation, and it's going to be another attempt to run out the clock on statute of limitations and a way to stonewall congressional investigations. Ellis, what's your take?
So what do we know about Weiss? Let's start there, right? He was the United States Attorney in Delaware, right? Appointed by Donald Trump. So where did he come from? Do we know whether he's a credible guy in the past? Do we know what he's done? Because here's the way it looks to me. I think that independent counsels, special counsels, are dangerous creatures, right? They get big budgets, they get a lot of attention. There is pressure on them to deliver something. And so far, he hadn't really delivered much of anything at all. But I'm still trying to get my head around what it is we know about this guy. If he's this milquetoast guy, why did Donald Trump put him in there in the first place? I just don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a good question.
I think it's an excellent question. I'll answer that, then turn it over to Jesse. The answer is he was sponsored by the 2 Democratic United States senators in a state that's a Democratic state. And it was an easy thing for Trump to go along with because he figured, what the hell, it's only Delaware. It's a small little state. Doesn't count. And it's a way of making nice and picking up political chits with the Democrats that he was needing the Senate to deal with his legislative programs.
Well, I must regret it now, right?
You think? More than appointing Jeff Sessions Attorney General of the United States? Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. Jesse, your turn.
Yeah, where he comes from, I think you just detailed for it. And one of the things that I see here is that, we've said this week after week. Thank God for that federal judge that unwound and really took apart this plea deal, this sweetheart plea deal. That judge she exercised her judicial responsibility and really shined a light on we didn't know how much of a sweetheart deal it was. But here are the different type of problems. Maybe these are, and I'm looking from more of a political point of view as opposed to maybe from a legal point of view and whatnot. But, there are questions about this because there's everything that both of you have detailed. But also, and especially then what's bothering me is the fact that the statute of limitations, some of these have expired. But also, we know that, to be thorough, and as Ellison said, we have big budgets for these special counsels and independent counsels and such. But it also allows for the clock to run out on this case. By the appointment at this time of an independent special counsel, it's going to push any of their findings back past the November 24 general election. And I believe that that's what the goal is. They keep moving the goalposts further and further down on the timeline so that they're not going to have to deal with this. And additionally, from a political point of view, from the podium in the press room or from any questions or debates, it's going to be very easy for Biden and Biden's people to just say, that's a matter for the special counsel. A special counsel was appointed to insulate their campaign. So I believe that's a bit of a problem. And I know we're going to talk about this in the next couple of minutes as well, but this is a broader type of question. Number one, I do think that there's a big problem. The legitimacy of this special counsel is in question. The legitimacy of Weiss and his role up to this point is questioned. But also, and I know this is one of the things we talk about, is where is there justice in America? I can't think of 2 cases that can clearly show the differences, that there's 2 different standards of justice in America than in the manner in which the Hunter Biden investigation has been handled, his plea deal and his special counsel, and that of Donald Trump. That is what's got to be scary here. And if we go beyond Donald Trump, the 2 standards of justice, and then this is something I harp on quite a bit because it's important, because it goes to the bedrock of our society, which is education. This is the Department of Justice that has declared parents who are concerned about the curriculums in their schools, if they go to a school board, they want to label them as domestic terrorists. On top of that, we're going to hire about 87,000 IRS agents to go after these very same parents and many more Main Street businesses and average taxpayers. So I believe that's where the true question is. That begins with Hunter Biden. It begins in the treatment of political opponents like Donald Trump of this administration and the progressive Democrats. And it then broadens out to how many different standards of justice do we have in America?
Alice, what do you think?
Well, every case is different. I mean, and I think Jesse, people come to this with their own political attitudes. I mean, we're a very tribal country today. And so if you do polling on this stuff, and I've seen these polls, right, that some huge percentage of Republicans, it's 80%, some number like that, believe that they're picking on Trump essentially. And some huge percentage of Democrats, it's probably up in the 80s, maybe even higher than that, believe he deserves everything he's getting and more. If anything, they're being too easy on him. I would like to find some kind of way to bridge those gaps. I constantly trying to find ways. One of the reasons I like mixing it up with you and the judge. I'd like to find some way that we can find some area of commonality in this, because otherwise we're kind of talking past each other, aren't we? How do we get around that? Because you can't convince somebody of that, right? There's no way, Jess, you could make whatever argument you want, and there's no way you could convince a progressive Democrat that they're being too tough on Donald Trump, right? And the flip side is true in the opposite direction. To me, that's kind of where I'm focusing my energy these days.
Let me share with the two of you a conversation that I had last night with Alan Dershowitz on Katz and Cosby. Uh-huh. And Alan, of course, is a distinguished professor at Harvard Law School and one of the great constitutional scholars of our time. And I had this conversation, and I gave him the name for his next book after the conversation.
Yeah, what was that?
And the name of the book is going to be it's a working title, of course. Alan is perfectly capable of coming up with his own titles, but he kind of liked it, or at least he said he liked it last night, and I was flattered he liked it. I call it To Rush to Injustice. What they did is they have 4 different jurisdictions going after Trump at the same time. They're all rushing to speed up the trials. At the same time, they're diverting his focus and his attention and his resources, his monies, to defending lawsuits, both criminal and civil, against him, while he's supposed to be gearing up for a presidential campaign where he's a front runner for the Republican nomination. If he gets convicted on any of these matters, the appeals will come out after the election in November of 2024. So even if the convictions are reversed, if he is in fact convicted, it's very hard to get justice then, because it would have had an impact on the voters' perception of Donald Trump. So that's number one. So if you want to have respect for the process, respect for commonality, and a legitimate center, people have to say that they're not treating Trump fairly. And I believe, as the House Democrat, that's correct. They're not treating Trump fairly. They're piling on him. Now, the flip of that is they're going out of their way to cover up any real investigation of the Biden influence peddling allegations. This is very serious stuff. If you had any doubt at all about how serious it was, is a revelation by John Solomon in Just the News of the documents from the State Department that showed very, very clearly that when Joe Biden went to the Ukraine and forced the firing of the prosecutor there who was investigating Burisma, where young Mr. Biden, Hunter Biden, was making a fortune out of that, he forced it, and he even spoke before the Council of Foreign Relations and bragged about how he forced the firing, because he said, if you don't do it, you're not going to get the $1 billion that we had promised you. So he was using his governmental position for that. Now, during, as this thing's unfolded, I know nothing about my son's business dealings. I wasn't involved in my son's business dealings. I didn't make any money with him. Show me the money. I wasn't a business partner with him. I've never misused my position. Well, he gets this. The son gets a complaint from the people of Burisma that the prosecutor's going after them. He makes a demand for shakedown money. Joe goes off to the Ukraine and forces them to do the firing of this prosecutor. And it turns out, Joe had said all along, he was just carrying out U.S. policy. It now turns out, courtesy of John Solomon, who should get a Pulitzer Prize for this, is reporting that there are documents that show that the State Department and official government policy was to support this prosecutor and the investigation of corruption in the Ukraine, and that the last thing they wanted to do was to fire this prosecutor, notwithstanding the rhetoric of Joe Biden. Jesse, what do you say?
I agree with what you said, Your Honor, and I understand and I completely agree with Ellis what his said, that we're all talking over each other, that we're very tribal and such. But I'll just go back to for the best way to achieve some type of consensus is through action. Now, if we go back 2.5 years, this president said in debates that he was going to bring this country back together. He was going to bring civility back to this country. He was going to bring civil discourse back to this country, and he's going to end the divisions that were the fault of his predecessor. When I think that all of us can think that possibly one of the reasons that these divisions really truly started were probably were seated in the tail end of the Iraq War and the tail end of the Bush administration, Bush 43 administration. And he's done none of that. In fact, he's gone 180 degrees, President Biden, on those words. He has called parents terrorists. He has basically called any conservative Republican that may believe and holds on to the mantra of make America great again, because that's what we all want as Americans. We should all want to make and continue to have America great again, believe in American exceptionalism. He believes that those are radicals, that those are terrorists in themselves, that they're ripping away at the fabric of our society. So I believe it does begin at that table, at that desk. The buck stops at the president's desk when it comes to restoring unity, civility, because I believe that there's a willingness on every side to do this. Unfortunately, now we're in a political cycle which is going to make it a little bit difficult. That's one. Number two, I think we go back to what Judge said. The way that these two cases are being handled, these two issues are being handled, is basically showing the American people who are making their decisions on what tribe they're going to be part of and not believe the other tribe, that it's about the fact that someone's weaponizing an institution of government that can put people in jail and stifle political debate and political discourse or discourse on policies that may differ from them. It's almost like weaponizing cancer culture with the Department of Justice.
Interesting. Can I make some predictions? So here's what I think is going to happen, and you guys could tell me I'm wrong here. I think.
Should we wait till you finish speaking before we tell you you're wrong?
You can stop me halfway. If I'm so egregiously wrong that you don't have to let me finish the sentence, I'll have to understand. Yes, I know this is a tough room. I understand that. So I think that it is highly likely that Hunter Biden is going to end up convicted of some serious crime and may well do jail time. I think that there is overwhelming evidence that he has violated various laws. I mean, listen, the guy's a drug addict. He lives a reckless life for a long time. He's getting huge amounts of money from clients in an area that's very regulated. I mean, it's, there are rules about how it is that you represent foreign companies in what. Exactly. And it's listen, he's clearly, this is a guy who ended up, sleeping with his dead brother's wife. I mean, he's not a guy who's very cautious, right? Most of us in our families, including the Henneken family, I will admit, have people who have drug and alcohol problems. And, people in that situation do stupid, bad stuff, right, that embarrasses the family. So I think that's likely to happen. I think those who are itching to get Hunter are likely to see that guy in some serious criminal trouble. In the case of Trump, I'll look at two different things. It seems to me that, and Judge, you and I have had this conversation, that the number 4 is a very important number in case. Now, we can pick apart each of these prosecutions, but let me tell you, when you've been indicted 4 times for 4 separate crimes in, I guess it's 3 different jurisdictions, they're going to hit him more. He's going to get convicted on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's likely. I think the one they'll get him, I think his greatest exposure is on the documents case.
It's the simplest. But here's what I would say. The thing to watch here is the clock. It makes so much difference in this case when this happens in the election cycle. Does it happen before the primaries? Does it happen before the election? What about, Judge, you mentioned the appellate schedule. That's the thing that I would worry about. And, of course, if Trump is reelected, then, of course, he has pardon powers and other abilities to change it. So, to me, the number 4 is deadly in his case. But I think the clock is really what matters the most.
Yeah, I got that signal from Kevin, but I just want to finish off this segment by saying my conversation with Professor Dershowitz last night, other than having the brilliant insight to give him a working title for his next book, Rush to Injustice, you have two fundamental legal flaws here, and these piling on of these four different cases where the Justice Department is pushing to prosecute and go to trial. Number one, you have a denial of due process because they're overburdening him, and how is he supposed to defend himself? He doesn't have the resources to do it. And second, it raises the issue of ineffective assistance of counsel, which is enough to, when you have ineffective assistance of counsel, enough to overturn a jury verdict. Because how can it be effective when you have to be all over the country on a constant basis in four different jurisdictions? So I think Alan Dershowitz is onto something with these due process issues, the ineffective assistance of counsel issue, and the multiplicity of the four. So we're going to take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, with our esteemed guest and good friend Ellis Hennigan, noted journalist, reporter, author, radio and TV personality. We'll be back in a moment with more of Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back on Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party and distinguished author, journalist, radio and TV personality, and commentator, my good friend Ellis Hennigan. So let's talk about the Iran deal. And I have said this for the longest time, and I want to get thoughts of each of you gentlemen. There seems to be this obsession by John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, the great climate czar, the would-be president of the United States, John Kerry, and Biden and the people around Biden to do an Iran deal. They want to give them money. They want to give them the billions and billions of money, even though this is a state sponsor of terrorists, probably the biggest and most dangerous state sponsor of terrorism, Iran. They've undercut a lot of the countries in the Middle East. They're in a warlike footing with Israel and vowed to destroy it and wipe it off the face of the earth. They keep going forward with their nuclear exploration, which makes it perilously close to having the Israelis have to do something, unless it's too late. And then God help us if Iran has nuclear weaponry, the shakedowns they can do. They kidnap people, they arrest them, and then they trade, and we're trading our good citizens for these folks who are, in fact, dangerous operators. They're gun runners, they're weapons distributors, they're terrorists, and we're giving them up plus money so that no American citizen is safe. So what is this all about? Why won't we grow up and understand that Iran is a threat and deal with it accordingly and stop giving them the resources to wage this war against us? Ellis.
Gosh, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're an awful government, and they treat their citizens terribly. They treat their neighbors terribly. They're a threat to the world. I wrestle with this, honestly, about how it is that we should interact with villains in the world. Right. And you mentioned the taking of American prisoners or holding hostages. I wish I had a good answer to it. Like I hate the idea of us exchanging prisoners with a country like Iran, right? Or paying them money to release people that we care about. At the same time, it's very hard to have an absolutist view of that. I mean, we saw this with Russia recently, right? With the Brittany Griner and this guy Paul Whelan over there. Are we better off just saying no, kill him if you want? Very difficult to do. Republican and Democratic administrations, I think, end up in the same place, which is to say we hate doing it, we denounce doing it, but you know what? Once in a while we're going to deal with villains and we're going to hold our nose and do that sort of thing. I wish I had a straight answer to that. I find it like just a really, really hard question.
Well, remember, this is a country that has open contracts out of some of our most important people, like the former Secretary of State Pompeo,
yeah,
Ambassador UN,
terrible,
Bolton,
terrible.
Other people who they find offensive, they speak out against it. They act extraterritorially. There was an attempt to assassinate, I think it was a Saudi ambassador or a diplomat in Washington at a restaurant. I mean, this is serious stuff. So why are we legitimizing them, and why are we giving them resources?
That's a great question. What does Jesse say?
Well, I mean, I agree with, this deal from back in the Obama era was wrong. Trump was right, and Republicans were right to make sure that this did not go forward, was repealed during the 4 years of the Trump administration. And, of course, now we have little givebacks back here and now. Just on recently on August 12th, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, warned the region, warned the world of these little side deals that could lead to the deal, a greater deal being back put into place. It's my understanding, and I could maybe get some of these facts wrong, because I know the judge will correct me, but I guess for the release of 5 Americans, Iran is negotiating quietly for $6 billion from the United States. This plan, Netanyahu has said, this proposal would not deter Iran's nuclear program. It will only fund more terror attacks, more terror proxies against the United States, its U.S. servicemen abroad, and our allies. And it has been described as unusual. This deal has been described as unusual. Any of these deals that have been done, the Obama deal or even this deal that's being discussed now for the release of 5 Americans, doesn't stop or slow Iran's nuclear infrastructure, and it's bringing together, it's unreal that even as factionist as the Israeli government has been over historically, it's brought these two political factions together, where they're both saying that any type of deal with Iran is going to be bad for the world, bad for the region, and bad for democracy around the world. I don't trust, the spokesman for the State Department or the NSC, Kirby, who says that any type of deal, even though there are no talks ongoing, but anything would include full visibility of how any monies are spent. Are you kidding me?
How do they do that?
How do they do that? The original deal that Kerry and Obama and Biden put forward together and engaged in with Iran, basically removed every inspector, removed any type of checks and balances on this. And all it did was release hundreds of billions of dollars that have been now used against democracies. This is a bad deal. And I just don't know what happened. Did something change in American policy where we don't negotiate with terrorists? Has something changed in the world, in our policy, where the Biden administration is straight away from that? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse raises excellent questions there, but I'm trying to get my head around the idea. Okay, so what should our position be? We never talk to these. We won't make any deal with these villainous countries. I remember I've been doing some reading about Reagan lately and doing some research on Reagan, and I was reading his stuff with Gorbachev, right? When he comes in and he makes arms control deals with Gorbachev, right, who's doing terrible stuff in the world, right, a villainous, bad government, bad guy. And Reagan says, listen, I don't like the guy, but maybe we're better off making deals with these monsters. And, I don't know. I got to tell you, I don't think it's an easy question, but I'm not sure. Jess, would you say under no circumstances should we make deals with these villainous countries?
I think there are times when we have to make agreements that have to be balanced. This Iran deal gave the world, gave the United States, gave Israel, gave the Middle East no protections, only slowed down, never stopped the infrastructure, the nuclear infrastructure in Iran. At least the deals that Reagan did. And listen, in politics, I always speak to my enemies. Number one, you never know when you can reach an agreement on one or two things, right? Number two, from my perspective, I want to know what my enemy's thinking so I can use it against them. Here's the thing is, though, the Obama administration, Kerry, Biden, the continuation of the third Obama administration that we are sitting in right now has been negligent and inept. The deals they've cut have blindsided and sidelined America. They've placed America and its national interests in jeopardy on everything, from climate change to the Iran deal to our placement in the world. There's a vacuum of American superiority and American leadership in the globe because we're not trusted by our allies and we're not taken serious by our enemies. Well,
our good friend who was often on the show with us, Eric Levine, has said the problem is that Americans, and particularly the Democratic politicians and leaders of this country, have an obsession with negotiating, as if negotiating itself is a virtue that far outweighs the merits of any ultimate deal. The very fact that you're talking and negotiating, somehow that's a good thing. Well, it may well be it's a good thing in some cases, and it may well be that if you're so obsessed about negotiating, you're going to be out-schnookered because the other guys know that you're obsessed with negotiating, and they'll keep you talking while they're doing what they have to do. The big failure of the Iran deal, the original Obama-Kerry Iran deal, is, number one, it should have been a treaty, and it wasn't a treaty. So they blindsided the American people in the United States Senate, and they didn't do it as a treaty. It's not a treaty. It should have been a treaty, and the United States Senate had a role in this, and they were limited and excluded. They were marginalized from that, and that's a problem. And as Ellis correctly points out, and you too, Jesse, have correctly pointed out, there was never something that guaranteed that they would stop production. It was just a slowdown. So when they fundamentally said, we've now ensured that Iran will not have nuclear weapons, it's the same thing as Neville Chamberlain saying when he came back from Munich, peace in our time. And how long did that last? We have to take that break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Our special guest, Ellis Hennigan, noted journalist, commentator, newsman, writer, TV and radio personality. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment with more interesting conversation on.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Hosting season's here. Are your windows guest ready? Early access to Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale is on now. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale early access now. Save up to 40% site-wide, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back on Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, distinguished journalist, reporter, TV and radio personality, author of 20 books, all of them great, I know, Ellis Hannigan. So let's begin. I want to talk about electric vehicles. Let's talk about the great obsession, this new energy obsession that we have to give up fossil fuels, and the way to deal with this is by electrifying everything, forgetting about where the natural resources and the rare materials that we need out of the earth come from, who's controlling them, and whether we have the infrastructure and the grid to support all of this, and whether wind and solar are enough. And what are we doing to deal with a sophisticated, civilized country which needs to have a whole range of energy supplies and not to marginalize and isolate fossil fuels? So they came up with this great idea. They're going to mandate, as a matter of state governmental control, central planning, electric vehicles. They do everything possible by mandates, by regulatory mandates, unrealizable mandates, and a lot of the stuff coming out of the regulatory commissions and agencies and departments, federal and state governments, to make it impossible to keep producing fossil fuel-driven cars, combustion engine cars. And the answer, of course, is electric cars, because electric cars are the greatest things since sliced bread. Well, let's put aside the fact that a lot of the minerals have to be derived from countries, totalitarian countries that use slave labor, because obviously that doesn't count. We have to ignore that. And the fact that our enemies are controlling this supply, and we could be energy independent if they just leave us alone and leave it to the free market forces. But let's insist upon having electric vehicles. Okay. So you have an analog to that. You have the great country of China, controlled by the Communist Party, which centralized decision-making in terms of the economy and mandated that electric cars, EV cars, are the way to go. In the Wall Street Journal, there's a great editorial which pointed out that there are tens of thousands of electric cars rusting on the lots in China, unbought, uncared for, dying in the graveyard of electric cars because there's no market for them. The government is saying you have to have electric cars, but people do not want them. Now, why is that troubling? Well, I'm not enough of an international economist type to say I feel good or bad about the economy of China crumbling, because that may have collateral impacts in the United States. I don't know the answer to that. But I'm not particularly unhappy that China was a rational, aggressive actor against us, which is trying to subvert our role in the world, that they're running into difficult economic times. That doesn't bother me too much. But the Biden administration has used as its mantra, its model, the electrical vehicle mandates. You have to, at a certain period of time, you have to get rid of combustion engine cars, which means fossil fuel cars, and you have to replace them with electric cars. And I submit to you, it's unworkable in China, and it's going to be unworkable in the United States. And we're setting ourselves up, as they say in the schoolyards, we're cruising for a bruising. Ellis, what say you?
This one's easy for me. I'm for all of them. I mean, honestly, I grew up as you know, in Louisiana, long before my years of hardening in New York. So I grew up in the oil patch, and so oil and natural gas are been a part of my life and my family's life for many generations. And I think there are many things it does well. And I think the position here is not to be for one over the other. I don't need to trash electric cars. I mean, some of those electric cars look pretty nice to me. But I don't think we need to get rid of gasoline cars. I think they all. My apartment building in New York is heated with natural gas. It works beautifully. It's toasty in the winter there. I wouldn't want to give that up for a solar panel or something. So why do we have to choose? I don't know why we need to choose.
Jesse, why don't you answer that question? Why do we have to choose, Jesse?
We shouldn't have to choose. We shouldn't have to choose at all. The problem is people like the Biden administration and progressive Democrats, they let their politics get ahead of their common sense and ahead of science. It's amazing. We'll listen to science on some issues, but we won't listen to science on other issues, such as this. I just find it amazing. And let's just talk about those abandoned cars that are sitting unopened. Most of them, and there were reports that these are new vehicles that have not been moved. And there was a drone that went over the province on the eastern side of China, where all these cars are located. And I can't even pronounce the capital of Zhejiang province. I can't, and I apologize for that. But all these cars are new. They're registered. They have license plates. They have layers of dust on them. The tires are partly covered with encroaching grass, and they're still wrapped up. Some of the plastic is still on them. I mean, I believe.
And the ones that are not wrapped are rusting, Jesse.
Are rusting, and the grass is growing through them.
And by the way, plastic is a bad plastic. Remember, plastic is a bad thing. You have to abolish plastic too, Jesse.
This is true. We can't carry anything in plastic anymore. You know, it's amazing. But this is why I say that progressive Democrats, those who love to use regulations to control the electorate and control society, are wrong on this. They know they're wrong on this, but they can't back away from it. Why? Because there is a political party here in America, the Democratic Party, that is controlled by a small, vocal, violent group of progressives that has scared away the moderates of their party. They are scared. Chuck Schumer is concerned with this group. This small minority is now dictating the policy for the majority, and it's wrong. And whether anybody wants to say anything about MAGA or they want to say anything about the Tea Party from 2010 to 2014, that group still never controlled the political party. If they did, Kevin McCarthy could possibly not be the Speaker of the House for the Republican majority. So
why can't? But Jesse, why can't we just put them both out into the market and let people decide which one they want to buy?
I agree with you.
That's what we all should. We should. What the problem is you have the guys who control the lever of power. They want to regulate everything, tell you exactly how to live, right, and they won't give you the choice. All we want is a capitalist system, freedom of choice. Let the market tell you whether it's viable to have electric cars and how many, and whether it's viable to have combustion engine cars and how many, and whether it's good to heat your home with solar or wind and how much of that you want to use, and how much you have to use fossil fuels or natural gas.
See, that just seems sensible to me. I mean, some of those technologies are probably good. Some of them are probably not so good. I mean, I live in the city. I don't have solar panels. I mean, I know people in some places think they're great. They pay like $5 a month for their power bill. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it makes any sense for me. But if somebody's sitting down in Texas and wants to put panels on their house, God bless them, right?
Well, let me say.
That's what we need.
Let me be very clear. I am a supporter of solar panels because when I bought my house out on Long Island, Jesse, it came with solar panels. So I said, what the hell? They want to give me solar panels? It's fine. But you know what? I still pay a sizable electric bill anyway.
and Ellis, you're making, and the judge is making the common sense argument. We're all in agreement. The overwhelming majority of Americans they want to make the choice. They don't want government to tell them what to do. I believe when government started mandates things, that's when it's our natural apprehension.
Yeah.
It's in our DNA to back away and say, no, don't tell me what to do, my body, my car, my house. I mean, this is a nanny state that wants to tell you You can't have a gas stove anymore. You can't have new construction that has natural gas. You can't have a gas-powered car. You need to have you have to be electrified and everything. These policies, they are good. They may one day be the new gasoline, the new gas-powered, but not yet, because the science and the technology is not caught up to their propaganda.
No, let them compete.
Democrats' propaganda.
Let them compete. Jesse, you and I are exactly on the same page with that. I just put them out there. People are pretty smart. I mean, they're going to figure out what car is a better vehicle. What's the price point? What's the productivity? I mean,
whether they're safe.
Whether they're safe. I mean, they're all legitimate, and maybe the answer is different from one person to another person. You know.
Well, let me be clear.
And that's what consumers know best.
Yeah, but let me be clear. I want the record. This is Let the Record Show. So let the record show that if somebody gave me, and I have nothing against the company itself, Tesla, but if somebody gave me a Tesla as a gift.
You take it. You would take it, wouldn't you?
No, if I take it, I have to pay the gift tax. Or they'd have to pay it for me. But the first thing I'd do is I'd go to a dealership where I could get a car that was combustion engine car. I would trade it in within the first day. Let's be clear. This is Let the Record Show. We are going to take a break, and we'll be back in a few moments with the final segment. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Ellis Hennigan, noted journalist, radio and TV commentator, reporter, author, and good friend, and the vice chair of the state Republican Party and county chair of the Republican Party out in Suffolk County, the Honorable Jesse Garcia. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, and Ellis Hennigan, noted journalist, author, TV and radio commentator, and very good friend to Jesse and to me. Well, as we're sitting here, there seems to be, as they say, breaking news. And the breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, is that the Wagner chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, is presumed dead after a Russia plane crash. Could that possibly be? And is that a coincidence? Is that true? Was he really on this plane? He's on the list. And how did this crash happen? These are interesting questions. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, I think the only thing, political opponents of Putin and the Clintons are the only ones that accidentally die and they commit suicide. The timing of this is curious. This plane was going from Russia to St. Petersburg. As they were going forward, as reports are coming through, and there were, I guess, 10 people. I just find this very interesting that the person who led the coup attempt, the one-day coup attempt against Putin, is now dead. About a month and about 2 months after a peace treaty with Belarus, peace accord with Belarus was reached, and it comes on the same day that the Russian general Sergei Sorokin was basically fired as the Russian Air Force chief general. You don't cross the Kremlin, you don't cross Putin. He'll get you one way or the other. And this is just supposition on my part, but I don't believe in coincidences. And what is interesting is what happens with Wagner now. Does it come completely under control of Putin? I know they were always linked together, the Wagner Group with the Kremlin, but the Wagner Group is making inroads in Northern Africa and Central Africa, and basically filling a vacuum of American leadership in that country, and literally planting the Russian flag there. This is going to serve more questions and more contention than anything else.
Boy, Jesse's cynicism is very well placed today, I would say. I mean, you guys remember a month ago when there was this huge clash between the Wagner Group and Putin, and maybe there was going to be a coup, and they were moving toward Moscow, and then all of a sudden it just kind of poof, it all seemed to be solved, and they were all being nicey nice, and a few cynical people were saying, Man, that guy better get a food taster. That guy better not stand near any open windows, right?
Right.
And yet we kept being told, no, they're working it out. He's going to be over in Belarus. It's all going to be lovely. And here we are, just such a short time later, and then. Oh, Jesse, you're absolutely right to be cynical about this.
Well,
I want to know what happened with that plane.
Well, I'm looking at this BBC, the British Broadcasting News Report, and they are saying that the Wagner Link Telegram channel, which is called Raison, reported that the private plane, which he was on the list of the occupants of that plane, it was a plane owned by him, by the way, was shot down by air defenses. It was shot down by air defenses. And then the Gray Zone later posted that Prigozhin died as a result of actions of traitors of Russia. So it seems to me that Putin has gotten his man.
Who are you going to be for here, though? I mean, it's easy to be against these people, but man, I don't like any of them. I don't think.
Well, I'm with you. In fact, I've been talking about this with Jesse, and I said this last night. I guess it was last night. My days run together, but with Ambassador Bolton, the former United Nations ambassador we had on Katz and Cosby, and I said to him, "When are we going to declare the Wagner Group a terrorist organization? Look what they've done. Look what they've done in these countries. They're like Hitler's SS. They go in, they rape the women and children, they have mass graves which they fill up with the innocent civilians. They bomb the hospitals and churches and schools and civilian residences. There's no safe place. They've undermined half a dozen countries in Africa. They really are part of the axis of evil, which Russia is part of. And so it was always being used by Putin as a strategic strike force.
Right. And the regular Russian army are not exactly a bunch of Boy Scouts, are they?
No, they're not known for the humanitarian efforts. Jesse, so what do you think we should be doing now? Is there a role for the United States given this? Is there something we should be doing with respect to Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Is this a turning point? Is it just a struggle for power and Putin will put the Wagner Group under its wing? Or are you going to have rebellious groups in the Wagner Group saying you killed our guy, you're going to pay the price for this? This makes for a great novel, gentlemen.
It really does. It's probably a new Jack Ryan novel that's going to come out in probably 2 years. But number one, I think that while we're watching this and everything that was unfolding, there are a couple of questions that pop up to me. Perhaps there is some truth, some shred of truth that the West was involved with Wagner or other forces in that coup attempt that was brought down after a day or two, because it came too quick. Number two, what I see that is a problem is the role of the Wagner Group, not just in Ukraine, but also in Africa. We've been talking about Russia's influence over the last couple of weeks in Northern Africa, now spreading into Central Africa. I mean, literally in Niger, they were carrying around Russian flags in the streets as they methodically, with Wagner, the Wagner Group operating on point. And I believe that the BBC story you're referring to even said that the last time he was seen was a day ago, supposedly in a video from Africa. So, we've seen where the Wagner Group is one point in the Central African Republic, CAR, Mali, Sudan, Zimbabwe, and now, of course, in Niger. And what is the common thread there? Very lucrative mining contracts and very lucrative mining materials that are needed by the global industrial community. This is going to be another problem. I'm not sure what the problem with the United States is. Earlier in the year, I believe it was in January or thereabouts, the Department of Treasury said in England that, in Europe, that Wagner was soon going to be named as a terrorist organization. That has not happened. That in April, that story started to change a bit, and there was waffling, and it's been quiet since then. And that's when we first thought that maybe there was some issues with the United States or the West working with Wagner on a coup attempt. But this is. I think that it's yet to be determined what's going to happen here, and I think we're going to have a little bit of a mishmash of everything. Some rebellion within the groups, within the troops. I think that these are paid mercenaries. They're going to go to the highest bidder. But the one thing that we do know is who. And the first question I guess we should find out: who's going to lead Wagner now?
And
is
the
it
other,
going to be a Putin puppet,
right?
Or is it going to be within their group,
or it's going to be taken under the control of the Russian army. But the question becomes, what's the impact of this death on the Ukrainian war? Ellis, what do you think?
Again, I'm looking for somebody to pull for here. I think they're all monsters. Boghossian seems to me to be a vicious, though very competent warrior. I think Putin has screwed up the war from the Russian point of view. And I wish they would all kill each other, honestly.
Well,
is that too hard? Is that a terrible thing to say? But that's really kind of
no.
what
I mean, listen, it's very interesting you raise that issue because I remember when I was in college, I read a book by Aldous Huxley. It was called Point Counterpoint, and it raised the following dilemma, gentlemen, which was if you know somebody's climbing to power, a kind of like a Hitler-like figure or a Stalin-like figure to take over, a dictator who was noted for his savagery and submission of his peoples by terror and violence. If you know that's happening, is there a moral legitimacy to assassinating that leader before he takes power? I read that book, and as a young person in my 20s, I went back and forth and I waffled what the answer was. I said, yes, there's moral legitimacy. No, you can't have moral legitimacy for assassinations. I went back and forth. Today, having put on a lot of years and a lot of experience, I unhesitatingly say that sometimes that's the best thing you can do. To save millions, sometimes you have to take out these reprehensible characters. So I'm with Jesse when he says a plague on both the houses. Last word to you, Jesse.
Last word is, this is a story that's yet to be completely written, but I will tell you that I hope that our intelligence services and our diplomatic services are up to the task of this new development.
Well, that's exactly right.
I'm not confident in it.
Ellis, Jesse, I want to thank you for being here with us. This has been a great hour show. We love having you here. You have to come back again. I think what we have to do is we have to make sure that we take Jesse out to lunch because we don't want to leave him out. He's entitled to a good Italian meal as well as you and I.
It flies by. Appreciate you all having me.
All right. Be well. We wish you and your families safety and good health. Thank you for listening to Let the Record Show.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.